This is an ink, line and watercolor wash art journal page completed with some PanPastel, and it's of the Lambley Gardens at Ascot near Ballarat, and I chose a senior couple strolling through the garden because they reminded me of my husband and I. It was a difficult painting for me to do because I have not touched my journal or my art materials since my husband took a turn for the worst early in January. I lost him on the 22nd of January, just a few weeks ago, and we'd been married for, uh, well, 56 years and best friends for 68 years. An amazing time we've had together, and it's quite different for me to be heading on by myself now in my 80th year and working out what the future holds for me. And I didn't even know if art journaling, art writing still was going to be in my life. I'm sure you've had times like that. It's okay to just cruise, to just wait until you feel up to restarting something. And so this is the first time I've picked up my journal pages, and the painting got a little bit muddy. What we're doing when we're painting is trying to capture the light. We're not trying, well, at least I'm not trying to do a line drawing. I'm trying to do a pattern of light and shade to create the beauty of the way light affects things. I don't want hard drawn lines and details. I also want to mainly be inspired by what I'm looking at, but I will make changes. The lady has her hands clasped behind her back. That's where I've drawn them. But I didn't feel that that worked for my painting, and I'm going to paint those out. Have her hands coming through to the front. And there's also a sketch of another person's head just above her shoulder there, and I'm going to turn that into part of her shoulder pack. I didn't feel it was necessary to have another head there. So you can make some structural changes, but I still like to use nature, what I see with my own eyes, as my reference initially for my artwork. I'm trying to, as I said, capture a nice colour harmony here, but I improved it as the work went on because I got, as I said, quite moody and quite muddy, which, well, given the fact that I'm painting this still struggling with grief, that's not too bad. I think we need to be a little bit forgiving of ourselves. Not make excuses, but as I said, understand where we're coming from, and the painting reflected my mood there for a while, but I pulled it together. Nothing like adding a little bit of soft pastel at the end if a watercolor gets a little bit muddy, which this one definitely did. So this could be an illustration of how to pull something out of the mud. I also wrote over the top of this after I'd completed the watercolor with my fountain pen, as you will see, and I didn't like it. It was the first time I tried that technique of writing over a watercolour with a fountain pen to do the art journaling on top of the painting. And it would have worked if I had painted a softer, more washed out underpainting style of painting rather than having got myself into the middle dark tones. So that was a lesson learned. If I'm going to paint over the page, I need to paint paler in the first place. So again, the soft pastel came to my assistance, and by doing very light transparent soft pastels over the top of the watercolor with the journaling on top, I was able to salvage that. So a few things are salvaged as I work with this painting, including my mental health. I do intend to try to do a art journal page each day from now on again, now that I've got started again. I think the empty page is the most frightening thing, or the hardest thing to get started with when you put something aside. I'm working with lovely materials. Mary artist quality watercolors, which I absolutely love. And this brush here, it's my favourite. It's the Winsor & Newton Series 7 Finest Sable and it's the number 8 size, and it comes to a beautiful point. And the difference between the synthetic brushes and the pure sable brushes is the amount of water and pigment that they will hold. You can keep painting for quite some time before you have to go back and reload the brush. Just coming in a little bit of close up, you might be able to see that there's texture on this paper. I like to work with a nice textured watercolor paper, and I'm working with Fabriano Artistico. Now you can see that I did some grief healing using this as a grief therapy page, and I wrote out some motivational personal thoughts, but I did not feel it added to the visual beauty of the page. I wanted to make the page more pleasing to look at. I decided improving the colour harmony, just working with opposite colour harmonies, the orange and the blue. So I chose several different tones and shades of orange and several different tones and shades of the blue. I've used a brighter, more cerulean style of blue for the ladies' clothing, and I've used more of a darker and denim type of muted blue for his clothing to differentiate between the colours the couple are wearing. I hinted at a little bit of blue in the garden, but very little. Mostly I've used the oranges in the garden. I haven't used any orange tones at all onto their figures. And I have also used some dark blue in the shadings in the background, particularly around the edges where I wanted the edges of the art journal page to be muted and form a frame. So I ended up being quite happy with this work, particularly considering it is the first one of a new journal. I was working on an art journal which I called Great for 80, and I'd been working on that for about 3 years. I started it with a 3-year goal to achieve certain ambitions that I had for my 80th year, and I've put that aside, and I've started this, you might call it my Working Through Grief journal. And I just felt like I needed a fresh start. And all my goals have changed. I don't even know what they are at this stage. I'm finding my way.